Welcome back to ILTV on the Hour. We are live from Israel, bringing you the biggest headlines from the region. It is currently 7 a.m. in New York City, and it's 2 p.m. here in Israel. I'm Caleb Ben David, and here are the latest updates coming out of the region. Hamas continues to delay in returning the remains of all the hostages no longer living, drawing sharp criticism and warnings from both President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. Now, following the initial return of 4 bodies on Monday, overnight a second convoy of 4 coffins crossed into Israel and was taken to the Abu Kabir National Center of Forensic Medicine for identification. This morning, 3 of the 4 were confirmed. Uriel Baruch, 35, from Giv'on, IDF soldier Tamir Nimradi, 20, from Nirit, and Eitan Levy of Bat Yam. A security official confirmed that the 4th body returned to Israel last night did not belong to a hostage, but was a member of Hamas. Now, with these returns, 7 hostages' bodies have now come home since the deal took effect. According to Israeli officials and the families, 21 bodies are still to be brought back. Hamas has reportedly told mediators that it will return 4 more bodies later today. Now, these latest identifications follows Tuesday's confirmations of the 4 others returned earlier. Guy Eluz, 26, a sound technician, was seized at the Nova Festival. Bipin Joshi, 24, a Nepalese agricultural student taken from Kibbutz Alumim. Yossi Sharabi, 53, of Kibbutz Berry. And Captain Daniel Perez, 22, an Armored Corps officer who was killed in fighting near Nachal Oz. All now are on their way to a proper burial. The families of the remaining hostages say that the timetable being dictated by Hamas is unbearable and that the agreement must be honored in full.
Right now, there is a violation of the agreement. 48 hostages have not been brought back, and we demand of the Israeli government, and we demand of everybody involved, especially the US and the Arab countries that vouch this agreement, we demand them to take action.
You can see vigils are continuing still at Tel Aviv's Hostage Square and also outside the Abu Kabir facility, with the participants demanding the immediate return of all the hostages. Officials do caution that the next phase will be slower and messier, with complex searches amid the rubble of Gaza, but the promise remains the same: bring every one of Israel's hostages home. And back in Washington, U.S. President Donald Trump warned Hamas to carry out its obligations under the agreement or face the consequences. Trump said, if Hamas does not uphold its vow to disarm, we will disarm them, perhaps violently. The U.S. president saying the job is not done on the ceasefire deal, as the dead have not been returned, and he claimed that Hamas has misrepresented the number of bodies it's able to retrieve. Trump also said yesterday that Hamas told his top aides that it will disarm, and the terror group would be dealt with violently if he refused to do so. He also pressed the Palestinian terror group to follow through with the release of all the dead hostages being held in the Strip. Prime Minister Netanyahu also weighing in, telling the U.S. channel CBS TV that as Hamas does not fulfill all of its commitments that it agreed to, including disarming and the demilitarization of Gaza, that all hell will break loose. This, of course, referring back to President Trump's comments.
On Gaza, how long will it take Hamas to disarm, and can you guarantee that is going to happen?
Well, they're going to disarm, and because they said they were going to disarm. And if they don't disarm, we will disarm them.
How will you do that?
I don't have to explain that to you. But if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. They know I'm not playing games. Okay? Now, we did something monumental. We got the hostages back. That was the first thing we had to do. Above all else, get the hostages back. Now, they misrepresented because we were told they had 26, 24 of dead hostages, if we can use those terms. And it seems as though they don't have that because...
And President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu, as I said, also weighing in an interview with CBS TV, stating that unless Hamas agrees to the demilitarization of Gaza, then all hell will break loose, of course referring to President Trump's comments.
Mr. Trump says the war is over, but clearly the war is not over. The IDF is deployed to sections of Gaza still, and Hamas is still on the streets of Gaza. How can you say the war is over?
Well, we agreed to give peace a chance. We agreed that we should The conditions in his 20-point plan are very clear. It's not only that we get the hostages out without getting our military out, but that we would subsequently have both demilitarization and disarmament. They're not the same thing. First, Hamas has to give up its arms. And second, you want to make sure that there are no weapons factories inside Gaza. There's no smuggling of weapons into Gaza. That's demilitarization. We agreed that that's part of the plan. And we also agreed, okay, let's get the first part done. And now let's give a chance to do the second part peacefully, which is my hope. But if not, I think I heard the president speak tonight. He said, listen, they better do it, or, how can I speak for him? He said, all hell breaks loose, okay? Well, I hope it doesn't.
Again, that from CBS TV. Meanwhile, the 20 freed hostages reunited with their families on Monday have now spent 2 days back in Israel after the tears, cheers, and hugs after 2 more years, spending 2 years in Hamas captivity. Now, the last 20 living hostages were released by Hamas to Red Cross teams, then transferred to Israeli military control, and then to hospitals for periods of rehabilitation, there meeting their immediate family members and close friends. The released captives are beginning medical and psychological rehabilitation as the nation celebrates their return and the ceasefire deal moves forward. Now, among the many touching moments, Guy Gilboa Dalal, greeted by his family in matching T-shirts printed, "Guy is home, the heart is whole again." This while his father was wrapped in an Israeli flag. Other reunions included Avinat Tanor with his girlfriend and former hostage Noah Argamani, and Omri Miran speaking to his young daughters via a video call before embracing them in person. Prime Minister Netanyahu and his wife Sarah visited the released hostages at Ayalon Hospital. Let's take a look.
בצאת החג באתי עם רעייתי שרה לבית החולים לפגוש את הבנים היקרים שחזרו הביתה. במהלך השנתיים האלה, רעייתי ואני נפגשנו עם המשפחות שלהם פעמים רבות. בכינו איתם, חיבקנו אותם, והבטחתי להם, אנחנו נחזיר אותם. ולא היה יום שלא קיבלתי דיווחים על מצבם, מה שידענו, מה שביקשתי לדעת. הבטחתי להחזיר אותם, והחזרנו אותם. ועכשיו, אחרי שהם מחובקים על ידי משפחותיהם, גם אנחנו נחבק אותם.
And while Israel observes the ceasefire, Hamas gunmen have launched a bloody crackdown in Gaza, executing dozens of their own people on the streets. Now, the documented public executions come as Hamas tries to reassert control over the Strip. The IDF decimated the organized Hamas military formations, but its armed gunmen have surfaced on those streets. 33 Gazans have reportedly been murdered by Hamas since the ceasefire began, Hamas targeting alleged collaborators or members of rival factions who were challenging their grip on power. Social media videos show that masked Hamas fighters forcing men to kneel in the streets before opening fire with machine guns as crowds chant Allah Akbar. Footage also shows Hamas gunmen deploying in southern Gaza, including members of the group's elite shadow unit, which held Israeli hostages during the war. Now, the brutal killings underscores the danger of allowing Hamas to retain power in post-war Gaza. Israel and the U.S. have made clear that Hamas must be disarmed and removed from governance to ensure lasting security and stability in post-war Gaza. Well, for more on this and more, let's speak with the former Israeli ambassador to the U.S. and the deputy foreign minister, Ambassador Danny Ayalon, now chairman of the Silver Road Capital Group, and Shiri Fein-Grossman, the former head of regional affairs on Israel's National Security Council. Shiri, Ambassador Ayalon, Danny, thank you for joining us. Shiri, I want to start just with you and asking, we've seen Hamas play these games before with the bodies of hostages, but what are they even reportedly now releasing as one of these supposed remains of an Israeli hostage, the body of a Gazan, a Palestinian, even said to be a member of Hamas? What's the point of this? What is Hamas trying to achieve here?
Well, it's a good question. First of all, we don't know if there is a coherent organizational hierarchy and strategy that goes along with what it is doing. I think there's a few likely scenarios that we're talking about the day after that are ranging from, the collapse of the ceasefire and going on going back to fighting, up until, the Trump peace plan being implemented to this fullest as the Israelis would like to see it implemented. So between those very broad spectrums, there are a few scenarios, and I think most analysts think that Hamas is trying to build this Hezbollah model in Gaza, because all of us cannot believe he will relinquish his power and disarm, but he will try to build this Hezbollah model where he keeps his weapon, he goes dormant, and then comes back again in a few years' time to strike Israel back and to govern Gaza again. So if we take that scenario, it doesn't make any sense what's going on in the field right now, and why would he, do everything that he does, jeopardizing the ceasefire and the humanitarian aid to Gaza. But what we're seeing on the ground is Hamas that is actually refusing to relinquish power, that is wanting to keep his power, keep his weapons, and this is the reality on the ground. And this is what we should look at, and not hypotheses and theories and scenarios. And this is, I think, what we learned from October 7th, to just watch what is happening on the ground and not make any assumptions. And I think this is the time for the Trump president and administration to really crack down on the mediators, on Turkey and Qatar, for Hamas to keep his word, and for them to keep their words that they're serious about Hamas disarming.
All right. Well, Shiri defined the problem quite well there and suggested what might be done. But we are getting earlier. There were reports the Israeli government was going to already take punitive measures, delay the streaming of some humanitarian aid into Gaza, not opening the Rafah crossing. It seems to have been backed down because of that. So, what should Israel be doing in this circumstance?
Well, Kalev, the one striking lesson that we have all learned, certainly Israel, is that we should nip any threats from organizations like Hamas or Hezbollah, from the bud. And what we're seeing here is that Hamas is testing us. And they're trying to infiltrate, and there shouldn't be any tolerance. And rightly, the IDF responded, and I think that a few of their terrorists were killed. But that should be a lesson to them that we will not allow what happened previous to the 7th of October, when they tried to lull us to sleep, tried to make us get used to the fact that they're coming to the fence, closing to the fence, throwing all kinds of fire elements, from balloons to anything else. I think this era has stopped. And what we have seen with Hamas, really mass murder, I would say, of their opponents in Gaza, should tell the entire world who is this ruthless enemy. And unfortunately, I have not heard a pips from any of these august international bodies, not the UN, not the Human Rights Committee, not from Macron or anything else. There was one little announcement by the European Commission, better than nothing. But this is what Hamas is, and I hope that now the entire world will realize, maybe it's a tall order to ask for, but they will realize who are the bad guys here and what Israel has been enduring, and that our fight is for humanity, for justice, and basically for the entire free world.
Right. It seems concern for Palestinians being killed is only when it's Israeli soldiers involved. When it's Hamas, as you say, we hear crickets mainly. Shiri, and also Danny Ambassador Ayalon referring to Israel opening fire on a number of Gazans who were breaking the ceasefire and approaching troops. There are some reports of 5 to 7 Palestinians killed. Well, again, there's only so much Israel can do in this case. There is supposed to be some kind of international body or security forces going into Gaza. There are reports just breaking in the last couple of hours that talks on the so-called second phase have begun in Egypt between Israel and Hamas and the mediators. Shiri, I want to get some sense of how you think, what do you think is we're actually going to see here? Because there's been a lot of speculation. Who are these forces? Who is it going to be? And what would be the best alignment for Israel to feel more secure about its security?
Well, this is going to take a long, long time, and we all need to take a very long breath. It's not going to be days; it's going to be months in the making to make any form of progress here. So we have to be patient. We have to work with partners around the world. We have to work with Palestinians first and most, who are willing to stand up to Hamas, who are willing to say enough is enough. We want to build a country. What is the best scenario that we can do is just take an area by area and clear it and make it as best as possible, so we create an alternative good future for those Palestinians who want to walk away from Hamas's kind of ideology and radicalization. And if we go neighborhood by neighborhood, quarter by quarter, and we just make a better life over there, and the life over there will teach that Israel is not the enemy. We want to live side by side. No Palestinian refugee. You're not a refugee. You're just living in your own land and governing yourself. And this is what we need to strive for, and slowly increase more and more people and stability throughout the Gaza Strip. That process is a long process, and Tony Blair and others are working tirelessly on that project. But in the big sense of the world, and I'm sure you'll get to that later. So I'm sorry if I'm jumping the gun here.
Sure.
But legitimization of Israel is key, and that goes through normalization with our regional partners here, with Saudi Arabia. This is a big piece of the puzzle in making Israel a legitimate part of this region, and this is the time for diplomacy. This is the time where the guns did their thing, and now it's time for the diplomats and the organizations and the bureaucrats to step into play, to work on terror financing and other things, so we can build a different future here, a better one.
Well, you talk about terror financing. Before I go to you, Danny, we do have some breaking reports. I'm stressing these were unconfirmed by the IDF at this point, of a possible terror incident, a shooting on Road 443. That is a road that parts of it do go through Judea and Samaria, through Samaria. Magen David Adom, the emergency rescue service, reporting there are some injured there. Again, these are unconfirmed. We'll just update that as it comes. But I guess it underscores the continuing situation, Danny, and I want you to weigh in on what Shiri said. And I also want to ask you, as the former ambassador to the U.S., we heard President Trump's speech say the war is over, telling Israel to move on, show more flexibility, go on. And the question is, as Shiri says, this is a process that now is looking like it's going to take weeks, if not months. And is the U.S. is President Trump going to be willing to potentially see a renewal of the war, if that's what it takes, if we're just simply not going to see the progress that is expected, especially, for example, the disarming of Hamas?
Well, Kalev, this is the key point. How will the United States conduct itself vis-a-vis Hamas? We see that Hamas is down but not out. And we are reminded that there are Hamas cells in Judea and Samaria, in the Palestinian Authority. This is why it is so difficult for us to accept Palestinian Authority rule over Gaza, because they hardly rule their own territory, Territory A, supposedly, out of in the West Bank. So I think, as the cliche tells us, Kalev, that the devil is in the details. And that means how you demilitarize Gaza, how do you de-radicalize it? It's not enough to demilitarize it. And how do you bring what Biden used to say, if we can remember his name, to a revitalized authority, Palestinian Authority. So here are the real details of how you demilitarize Hamas, and for that, time is of the essence, because as long as there is vacuum there, where the IDF pulled out and Hamas is free to do their murderous acts, this can actually scuttle the entire exercise here. So we need to see the ISF, the International Stabilization Force, going in as fast as possible, hopefully efficiently, with US guidance. They have 200 military personnel, not in Gaza, but in our territory in the Negev, close to the Gazan border. This is essential to do it right now. And then, of course, we'll have to see a real reforms in the Palestinian Authority. If we want to see any kind of political process with them, they must first and foremost renounce terrorism, stop the financing and supporting of terror and terrorists and terrorist families, and they would need to change their curriculum so they will stop spewing hatred against Israel and Jews. This is something that is also crucial for the continuation and the success of the process. We need to see a new culture, a new political culture among Palestinians where they really preach and believe in peaceful coexistence.
Right. I'm getting some more updates on this shooting incident. There was a shooting incident in which there were injured, but there are now some reports, again, all unconfirmed, saying this may have been a criminal act or there may have been criminal motives involved there. Again, on ILTV, as more details come of this, we'll update it. I want to go back to the point you just raised, and Shiri also saying there has to be some kind of Palestinian involvement. There are reports that already there's been a team of a little over a dozen Palestinian technocrats, as it's been said. But Shiri, we did see Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas down there in Sharm el-Sheikh with all those Arab leaders seeming already being brought in as some kind of partner here on the process of what's going to go on in Gaza, at least by the U.S. Some reports say Prime Minister Netanyahu, that's one of the reasons he did not go to Sharm el-Sheikh, along with the issue of the Jewish holiday. The process Danny is talking about could take, again, months, if not years. So how should Israel be dealing with now, for example, the Palestinian participation in this process?
What we're seeing right now with the Abbas participation is fake it till you make it theater. They're faking a Palestinian state that doesn't really exist. Abbas is very, very unpopular, very, very corrupt. There are very good Palestinians that wants peace with us. There are very few, unfortunately. We need a lot more. And if we want to get serious about having a different reality here, we have to move away from, framing old frames like the two-state solution, like, things that we've said, capacity building. No, we need a different narrative coming out from the Palestinian Authority or a new government authority that actually wants to live here, that, that puts UNRWA, that says no more UNRWA. We're going to build schools for ourselves. We're not refugees anymore. We're building our country. So it's not a fake it till you make it. We're not faking it. We're actually building the country. And we focus on building ourselves rather than going after Israel. And I'm seeing the terrorist attack news as we come along. We have to consider a scenario where Hamas says, okay, I've given up on the Gaza. Now it's time to bring out everything I have in the West Bank. And we've seen so many smuggle attempts failing smuggle attacks from Iran with guns and rockets that we haven't seen before. And we have to ask ourselves, how many attempts did succeed? Did we have successful attempts? What do we have in the West Bank? This is why we went into operation in the West Bank itself, why this is such a worrisome scenario, just, on a day when all of Israelis want to get back to their life, the war is over, and then how quickly we're reminded that if we're given hope for even one day, it's been taken away in hours. that we still have terror attacks that we have to live with. And I call out, I'm so thankful for President Trump. But if he wants to get serious of having peace in Israel, the road that he's chosen with Erdogan and Qatar is the right track, but he has to be forceful. He has to make them, put action into the words, like designating the Hamas terror organization. Okay, you're serious about him disarming? How about you designate him that he cannot use your markets to grow financially and then finance whatever he's planning to do in the West Bank?
All right. And Danny, briefly, since you served in the political sphere as well as a Knesset member, as a member of government, Prime Minister Netanyahu, going forward, is he today going already back in court, going in trial politically? Is he going to be able to show the flexibility that President Trump asked of him at the Knesset the other day?
Yes, the short answer, Kalev, is yes. We have seen the flexibility when Trump actually asked him, to say politely, to bring back our squadrons that were going to have the last attack on Iran, a real major blow to the Iranians. Trump decided it's enough, 12 days war, and giving the Iranians a chance. He was even inviting them to the peace conference in Sharm el-Sheikh. I think it was more, tongue-in-cheek, and it actually was humiliating the Iranians by inviting them. Of course, they refused. But yes, I think that now it is quite clear that if Netanyahu has to decide between Trump or Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, he has decided and he will continue. Once he made the first step, there's no going back. And if needs to, he will go all the way to elections, because now he has some positive agenda to go to elections on. So the political clout that Smotrich and Ben-Gvir used to have is no more.
All right. I want to thank Ambassador Danny Ayalon, Shiri Fein-Grossman, also CEO of the Israel-Africa Institute, I should mention. Thank you so much for joining us on ILTV.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clive.
And now here's a brief word from one of our sponsors.
עוד יותר, כן, עוד יותר, עוד יותר, כן. מזל טוב.
אתה הכי טוב. עוד יותר טוב.
אלבר, רק את הטוב! ועוד הנפקה מוצלחת לחברת ההייטק הישראלית.
אולי תהיה יותר טוב משם.
גבירותיי ורבותיי, נחתנו בהפתעה בנמל התעופה בן גוריון. ברוכים הבאים לישראל.
Israel is strong and growing. Now more than ever is the time to make Aliyah.
And again, another brief update. There is a shooting incident in Judea and Samaria on Route 443 in Samaria. 5 injured. Again, we don't have more details. Possibly a criminal incident or a terror incident. ILTV will follow the story as it develops. And let's end this broadcast on, I think, some good news. Israel has won, or an Israeli has won, another Nobel Prize. Joel Mokyr, who was born in the Netherlands and raised in Haifa, was awarded the prize for his groundbreaking research on innovation-driven economic growth. Mokyr received half the prize, other half shared by economists Philip Achion and Peter Howitt for their work on how innovation replaces outdated systems to drive prosperity. And Professor Mokyr has said he still considers himself an Israeli, despite being many years there working and studying in the United States. Congratulations to him. And yes, to the state of Israel. for this Nobel Prize. And that ends this update on ILTV. Stay tuned, of course, for further updates, or, of course, follow our app. You can do that by just scanning this QR code, which is right on your screen here. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kalev Ben David, and keep watching ILTV.